What's up, guys? Welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. If you want to support me, you can always use the TCGPlayer link below, or liking, commenting, subscribing, boosting that algorithm will always do the trick. Now, let's get into today's Deck Tech with the Witch King. And guys, this is going to be a simple discard deck. Now, hey, whoa, I'm not a terrible person. We're discarding our own cards. We are not discarding our opponent's cards, so calm down. We're just going to get these massive creatures into our hands, discard them into the graveyard, and then reanimate them, because black does that really well. Additionally, we have a lot of ways to get some value whenever we discard certain cards. So, if that sounds like a deck tech you want to build on a budget, let's get into it. Alright, let's get into those massive creatures we're going to be animating, because let's be honest, that's why we're here. Asmodeus the Archfiend. This guy has a pretty cool synergy with Feast of Sanity. Now we can keep refilling our hand, discarding our hand, and dealing a lot of damage to our opponents or permanents, right? Additionally, hey, this will get exactly what we need in our graveyard to go ahead and start reanimating those massive creatures. Lorcan Warlock Collector. This is going to be awesome. We have some life gain synergies in the deck, so we'll gain a lot of life. We'll go ahead and steal our opponent's creatures, and hey, that's just going to put us in a better position to gain more life. Nurkana. Easy, double mana, throw it in the deck. Additionally, hey, we can buff her to the moon and start taking some people out. Burning Ruin Demon, a solid tutor that's going to get something into our graveyard and into our hand. A solid way to cheat the system with this card is, one, get a creature you really want, and then get a reanimation tool. So then it doesn't matter what they pick, we are going to come out on top. This guy is amazing because our devotion to black is going to be massive. So he can create a pretty big board state, and it's not going to matter that we have to sacrifice stuff because, again, we'll have a pretty big board state with this guy. Speaking of black devotion, we have Gary. This guy's solid in the deck. He'll gain us a lot of life and deal a lot of damage to our opponents. Black Primordial is also going to be a solid card in the deck because, hey, why not animate our opponent's stuff as well? Thieving Amalgam. This card does everything we want to do. It's going to steal our opponent's cards, we're going to be able to flip those cards up, and hey, whenever those cards die, we're going to drain our opponents. Super solid. Breaker of Armies and Ulamog's Crusher. Now, hey, this wouldn't be a fun little budget reanimator deck without some Annihilator zombies. These guys are massive and they're going to be extremely annoying to deal with. Shard of the Void Dragon. This guy's going to enter the battlefield. We're going to reanimate him because we're not paying that mana cost. And then he's going to be a huge threat that just keeps growing and growing, and we're just going to keep smashing face. Demon of Dark Schemes. This guy does two things, right? He's one, a big beater, and two, a solid reanimation target. Notably, hey, we have a lot of big beaters, so token strategies can kind of be bad for us, so this is going to get rid of that problem as well. Let's move on to the reanimation part of this deck, because you know we're not going to be casting full price for those giant beaters. Chainer, this is perfect. Now we can discard 7 drops and, bring them back from the graveyard for 3 mana. Ruthless Technomancer. Not only can this get us a lot of mana by sacrificing giant creatures, we can also then sacrifice those treasure tokens to bring those creatures back from the graveyard. Archpriest of Shadows. Not only can we make it to our commanders dealing damage to bring creatures back from the graveyard for a turn, which will definitely catch some people off guard. Terror of Tawashi. Now this one's pretty useful because it is on attack, so even if he dies the turn we attack with him, we will still reanimate something from the graveyard. Victimize. Super solid. You guys knew it would be here. Doomed Necromancer, cast him for 3, wait a turn, and then we bring something big back from the graveyard. Dread Return, super solid, basically a staple in these reanimator type decks. Persist, this one's really cheap, really efficient. Phyrexian Delver, you will have to pay a lot of life for this, but remember we do have some life gain synergies, and at the end of the day you get a body with a bigger body. Resurrection Orb. This is the life gain I'm talking about, right? Not only will we get lifelink, but we will also get solid protection for our creatures. Moving on to the core of the deck, we have Mausoleum Secrets. This is a super budget tutor that's honestly going to be pretty effective in this deck. Luxodon Warhammer, I want to give my commander a little more power, and honestly lifelink is definitely appreciated in this deck. Sir Conrad the Grim. Now whenever we discard a creature card or reanimate a creature card, we're draining our opponents, which can honestly be a game ender in this deck. Bone Miser. Now we can discard very specific cards for whatever we need. Hey, do you need mana? Discard a land. Do you need to draw a card? You can discard a non-creature, non-land card. And then you can create creatures by discarding creature cards. This card's super flexible. We did spring a little bit for this one budget-wise, but it's gonna be worth it in this deck. Faith of the Devoted. Again, we're gonna gain a little bit of life while draining our opponents by just doing what the deck wants to do. Archfiend of Ifnir. This one's insane, and honestly, if it sticks, we probably win the game. This card makes it to where none of your opponents can stick creatures to the board. We're just going to keep discarding cards, and they're just going to get smaller and smaller. Now, Ruthless Sniper, this one's not as good, but it's still definitely worth it because it's a -1/-1 counter. That's going to stay on there turn after turn after turn, and we can slowly whittle away their giant creatures. Dying to Serve, this one not as good as the Bone Miser, but hey, it's still welcome here. We're going to create a board state by doing what the deck wants to do. Feast of Sanity, this one's solid. It's going to be a little bit of life gain, right? While again, draining our opponents or even taking out creatures with this. Moving on, let's get into that card advantage. We have Hostile Negotiations. Now, this can honestly dig you 6 cards deep, and you're going to be pretty happy with whatever the outcome is. Read the Bones, super solid. This can dig you 4 cards deep, really get you through your deck and get you to those pieces that you need. Sign in Blood and Night's Whisper, super solid. Draw 2 cards, lose 2 life. Peer into the Abyss. This is pretty budget, and it's going to be really good with something like Feast of Sanity on the battlefield. Now, we can draw half our library and discard it to deal a lot of damage. This card is also pretty insane with the Bone Miser too, right? Plus, with Feast of Sanity on the board, we're not even going to lose that much life, right? We'll pay 20 life, draw 50 cards, discard 50 cards, we'll end up at a net positive of life. Phyrexian Arena, oh how the mighty fall. This is now a budget card, and I'm excited to start including it in my lists. Dread Presence, super solid. Play a swamp, go ahead and draw a card, because why not? Cut the Prophets, I like this card. Honestly, you just sacrifice something with 3 power, and you're gonna get a ton of card advantage. Shadow Heart, we can sacrifice those massive creatures to draw cards. Not ideal, but hey, you do what you gotta do. Mask of the Grizzlebrand, more lifelink on top of, hey, if we sacrifice that to, reanimate later, we can then just draw a ton of cards. Moving on to the ramp package, we have Charcoal Diamond, Soul Ring, and Wayfarer's Bauble. Solid early game ramp. Song of the Damned, seem pretty cool in this deck. We're gonna add a lot of mana to our mana pool, judging on how many creatures are in our graveyard. Burnished Heart, just solid ramp. I know it's not ideal, but honestly, 6 mana for 2 lands, not the worst. Worn Power Stone, this one's pretty good. Mana Rocks are going to be a solid avenue to take in mono black, such as Mind Stone. Also, we do have Scourge Familiar. Now we can even discard cards to add mana to our mana pool. Bantu's Monument, also super solid here. We lower the CMC of all of our creatures while just being able to drain our opponents. Simlance Anvil, all we have to do is make sure we imprint this on a creature, and now all of our massive creatures that cost a lot are going to be reduced by 2. This can be really impactful. Moving on to removal, we have our Edict effects with Fleshbag Marauder, Demon's Disciple, and Merciless Executioner. Ravenous Chupacabra is also going to be a super solid option to, get rid of some of our opponent's creatures. Feed the Swarm can get rid of those annoying enchantments or creatures. Defile, super efficient in a mono black deck. Tragic Slip is going to be super easy to cast in this deck. The Morbid cost is not going to be an issue. Noxious Gearhulk, another way to gain some life while removing creatures in a super flashy way. Butcher of Malakir, now whenever one of our big creatures dies, or even one of our smaller ones, everybody else will have to sacrifice their creatures. Super solid and honestly pretty oppressive. Mutilate, this one's going to be amazing in a mono black deck, and it does get around indestructible, which can be important. Massacre Worm, again, I did say token strategies are kind of the bane of our existence, so having this just as another backup against those token strategies is going to be a solid option. With that being said, that's going to do it for the deck tech, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. As always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one, and I hope this helped you in your deck building endeavors.